Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Audrey.
Hello, everybody.
No.
We're just going to take a minute, please, to let everyone file in. We're going to give it just a few more minutes until likely 3:05 CET. And if you could all please eventually keep an eye and enable the chat function. We'll be using it through the meeting. We have a wide range of time zones reflected here. Just a few more minutes as a few more people are filing in. We'll begin in 2. And very pleased that this is one of our first global virtual IFB sessions that's run by our colleague Keyvan Izadi, who's with us as well from very early morning Colorado time.
Good morning.
And okay, I think we'll slowly start to get the session underway. It would be typically with these IFB sessions that are global, we do record these exchanges so that you're all aware. So, Kayvon, if you could please click on the record. Thank you. Okay, that's great. Okay, so welcome everybody. I know that we're going to have quite a number of other people filing in. This is very typical. And my name is Audrey Sellian and one of the co-founders of Impact for Breakfast. And I'm delighted to welcome you all here today. We've lost count of the number of virtual sessions we've done at Global IFB. So, but there have been well over 600 of them over the last 18 years. And so this is a hallmark session that allows us to feature our colleagues at IFB Seoul. So delighted to have you all here. I'm just doing the initial welcome and just a few words on housekeeping. The goal and intention of our discussions is always to foster conversation and to swim in the informality that we create in tight-knit communities where the mission here is just sharing knowledge, telling stories, and allowing for people to connect in the interest of future collaboration and partnership. So, please feel free to keep an eye on the chat section of the Zoom. And if you have thoughts and comments, our moderator will pick up on those, bring them out. Feel free to raise your hand and unmute yourself if you do have questions, and we will go from there. Today's session is very exciting. We're looking at the topic of unlocking Korea's potential for impact and the role of impact investment in regional development in Korea and beyond. I'm going to swiftly hand over the baton to Mr. Kwang Kim, our Artha Networks colleague, who we've been working with for many long years. Kwang is the co-founder and co-chair of IFB Seoul, chairman of the board of the Human Flourishing Foundation, and a partner at Sonamu Artha Ventures. And he's been formerly with the IFC and the Asia Foundation, supporting long-term economic models rooted in mutuality. Without further ado, Kwang will be moderating the session and we'll be doing sort of the onward introductions of our speakers. And take it away, Kwang. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this very special Impact for Breakfast global event hosted in collaboration with IFB Seoul. It's called Korea as the Gateway to Impact in Asia. Over the next hour, we will explore Korea's remarkable journey from a development success story to a growing but still not really well known hub for impact investing in Asia. We'll delve into its innovative ecosystem, the unique position to foster regional partnerships, and the opportunities for investors and entrepreneurs alike. We are privileged to have a panel of distinguished leaders who are at the forefront of this movement in Korea and Asia. We will begin with welcome remarks from Chino Chung of Wells Investment. Following that, we will have the presentation from Eugene Yoon of Sonamu Artha Ventures, Audrey of Rianta and Artha, Jungtae Kim of MISC. After their presentations, we will move into a group discussion and Q&A session with all of you. During the Q&A, please feel free to raise your virtual hand or type your question in the chat, and I will direct it to your speakers. You can also type your questions in the chat during the presentations, by the way. So to begin with, I'd like to invite Chino to deliver the welcome remarks. Chino is the chairman and co-founder of IFB Seoul and chairman and CEO of the Wells Investment, a mission-oriented venture capital company based in Seoul, Korea. So Chino, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kwang. Thank you, Audrey. Good morning and good evening, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. It is my great honor and pleasure to welcome you to this special Impact for Breakfast global gathering. Today's event is not only a meeting of minds, but a symbol of strategic collaboration, a joint initiative between Global Virtual Chapter and IFB Seoul that reflects our shared vision to expand the reach and depth of impact investing across Asia. This convening was born from a simple yet powerful insight. While global capital and solutions are essential, contextual, locally grounded strategies are critical for meaningful and scalable impact. Korea offers a compelling case in this regard. As many of you know, Korea's economic trajectory is extraordinary, having transformed from a post-war developing nation to one of the world's leading innovation hubs in just a few decades. But beyond the headlines of growth, something more profound is emerging. A new generation of entrepreneurs, investors, and institutions committed to creating value beyond financial returns. Today, Korea is uniquely positioned as a gateway to impact in Asia for several reasons, we believe. First, a dynamic startup ecosystem driven by young, mission-driven entrepreneurs. Two, strong public-private collaboration with government-backed innovation funds and policy support, and a growing pool of impact-minded institutional and corporate investors seeking to align purpose with profit. There is growing momentum from the new government, corporate, and institutional investors to align capital with climate goals, social inclusion, and long-term sustainability. Yet, what makes this moment truly promising is not just Korea's internal transformation, but its potential to catalyze cross-border collaboration. Asia as a whole, home to over half of the world population and some of its fastest growing economies, present immense opportunities and complex challenges. If we can build replicable, resilient models for impact here, the ripple effect will be global. This is why your presence here today is so meaningful. You represent the best of the global impact ecosystem, practitioners, investors, thinkers, and builders. I hope that today's discussion will spark not only insight, but real partnership that carry forward after this breakfast meeting ends. On behalf of IFB Seoul, I want to thank our great speakers and partners at IFB Global for their steadfast collaboration, and to each of you for your time and commitment to driving meaningful change. Let's make the most of this opportunity together. Thank you and welcome to Seoul. Now, let me return to Kwang Kim, the co-chairman who will be in charge of today's proceeding. Kwang, yours.
Thank you, Chino. That was a very insightful and warm welcome, and for framing our discussion very effectively. Now we will dive into the core of our discussion. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our three esteemed speakers. First, we will hear from Eugene Yoon. He will give us a comprehensive overview of Korea's dynamic impact ecosystem. Eugene is the CEO of Sonamu Global, a cross-border investment advisory firm, and its impact arm, Sonamu Arta Ventures. He is a must-listen for anyone wanting to understand the key trends and players on the ground. Then we will have Audrey. She needs no introduction. She is the founder of IFB and director of Arta Impact. And she will help us connect the dots on why Korea matters from a global perspective. And finally, Jung-tae Kim, the CEO of MISC, which is a social innovation consulting firm, accelerator, and impact investment company based in Korea. He will elaborate on why Korea is a strategic gateway to Asia. So he will drive us home this point. Jung-tae and his work is at the forefront of cross-border impact investing and leveraging Korea with other Asian and global partners. And it's going to be really a fascinating session to hear. So with that, let me pass over to Eugene. So Eugene, please share your insights and go ahead.
Thank you very much, Kwang and Audrey. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today. Actually, I'm based in Korea, but I flew over to the United States 1 week ago. US has way too much energy, and I have managed to catch a air conditioner cold. Okay, so please pardon my um, speech, which is going to be a little bit rough and a little bit croaky. Um, I want to take you through a very short journey of my view of Korea as it is now, and especially in relation to how impact investors can view Korea in 2025. Okay, as Gino mentioned in his opening speech, we went from one of the poorest countries in the world to being quite an advanced. We've joined the League of Advanced Countries, and I think we can call one of our key features being very high tech. And in terms of digital transformation, I think we're second to none in the world. Okay. What are the key drivers? Well, education certainly is one of them. As you know, we go mad with our education, and I really mean mad, so that the parents and children suffer enormously from the high pressures. Okay, and this has to do with the competitiveness that really distinguishes the Korean society. As well as that, we are a densely populated country with about 55 million persons. We have another 20 or 30 million north of us in North Korea. We're not sure exactly how many are there. But certainly in South Korea, we're very, very well connected. We have one of the highest speed internets, and everyone is working on the internet adoption idea. So this places us very nicely to make a jump as far as AI era is concerned, and as far as doing some of the very high-tech industrial things are concerned as well. Okay. I want to take a quick look at the impact space as I see it. It's very big. That's kind of surprising because for many impact investors, Korea is not really your first destination. Okay. However, we think that depending on how you measure it, the Korean investment industry is going to be about $10 billion by 2030. I think a lot of it is due to ESG. Okay, in back in 2008 and 2009, we coined the term green growth, and Korea is very, very keen to work on these green growth sustainability ideas. So that's why our ESG sector is so large. But I think what we're seeing is a catch up of social impact that is getting bigger and bigger. So altogether, we think that our impact space is growing at about 25% per year. That is huge. Now, what stands out? As I mentioned, and as Gino rightly pointed out, innovation, okay, and high tech. And what we do in the context of impact investments here in Korea is we're applying our innovation and high tech to solve social problems. And we're taking the most successful elements, factors that we see in our industry, and applying that to social issues. Some examples would be how we use AI. Okay, so for example, we use AI. We have a company here that is teaching children with developmental delays. They go on digital programs that have AI behind them to patiently take them through the learning process. I, I think this is a very wise and interesting way to use AI. Okay, I could not be as patient as AI. Another example are drones. We're very advanced in drone technology, and it's not just flying the drones, but trying to get the back end logistics and the systems correct. So there's a lot of autonomous drones flying around, and what they do is they're delivering to remote areas. So I believe that these technologies, such as AI and drones, are being experimented and pioneered here in Korea and for impact investments. And we can take these overseas very easily. The same thing can be said about robots. We're helping handicapped people, lonely people. Robots with AI are talking to old age persons in their nursing homes. We're also doing a great deal on clean energy and biotech, a really interesting company that we have here that I saw recently is they're working on future foods, delivering or actually producing protein by taking stem cells from cows or pigs or chicken or even lobsters and salmon and growing those in bioreactors. And we can produce a lot of protein very cheaply. And I think this has a great opportunity to make a big difference to the future food problem. Okay. Against this backdrop, what is missing? I believe that Korean community, regarding the impact space, is that it's a little bit too isolated. Now, uh, you'll hear from JT, who is going to explain how his company MISC is doing so much more to network Korea with the rest of Asia and the rest of the world. But he is, I think he's an outlier, and we're more likely to see Korean impact companies be more focused on Korea than going overseas. That means they don't get to see global investors as well. So the missing part is that we need to go global, and I think we need to connect our companies with opportunities overseas, working hand in hand with global investors. Okay? So the opportunities are there. I think it's huge. How do we take advantage? I feel that we can connect with local partners that have expertise. Okay, and by we, I mean the global community should be looking to partner up because going overseas, going cross border as an investor is very challenging. And we could do with good Sherpas that can help us navigate our way through the very complex cultural and regulatory and economic issues. Okay? So I think we have very good local partners, and we're here to work with you. For example, my company Sonamu and Artha and Misk, JT is going to talk later. We have gotten together to build a platform in which we can introduce foreign investors to the Korean and Asian startups. So that will be a very interesting undertaking. I think I want to part by saying, hey, Korea seems to be doing pretty well. They don't need our impact dollars. I like to think other ways. I think, as Chino mentioned, there is a ripple effect. Actually, I think there's a multiplier effect. If we can do something here in Korea, we can put our digitization, our innovative, high tech knowledge, our good science to work. And we have, I think, in Korea showed that we can build industries very quickly. We can scale up. That means if we put dollars into Korean projects, there's a good chance that we can take these overseas and have a multiplier effect as far as impact investments are concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gene, for that very helpful overview. And I know you're under the weather, and thank you so much for all this effort. You've painted a very clear picture of a very vibrant and technologically advanced ecosystem that is present in Korea. One quick question for you. How would you summarize Korea's key differentiation from an investor's perspective, especially impact investors? How is it different than other hubs in Asia, such as Singapore or Japan?
Oh, that's a very difficult question, Kwang. Um, in Singapore and Japan, Tokyo, I think are very fine hubs, and we look to them to learn from them. I think the big difference is that Singapore already attracts a lot of capital. You know, these are global fund management hubs. Japan has a lot of big money, which goes into big projects and are very much, I think, infrastructure driven. So Korea is a little bit different in the sense that we are, I think, much more independent of these large companies so far. And we have a lot of, Gino mentioned, entrepreneurial spirits that are putting very good ideas. Not all of them are going to work, but putting very good ideas to solve social problems. I just want to point out, for example, we have one of the highest um, suicide rates in the world. Okay, nothing to be proud of, but I think what we're doing is trying to figure out how to tackle that problem through the means of digital connectedness and giving help at the right time. So there are things that are going on here. I think that the world will adopt or can adopt, and it'll be a huge benefit.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jane. Now let's turn to Audrey. Audrey, please feel free to share your thoughts on why Korea matters to the world.
Thanks, Kwang. I mean, my perspective is really from that of working in the context of a private wealth fund that's been directly active in identifying social innovations in emerging markets. And so what I've been able to learn about South Korea is really the miracle of its journey from being a war-torn nation in the 50s to becoming really one of the world's most advanced economies. And in that are the lessons in resilience around the rapid industrialization, the investment in education, and this export-led growth that's become a model for other countries. And there's a lot of experience, obviously, in creating inclusive growth and infrastructure and digital transformation. How that's being now applied in global development initiatives to the business of social transformation is where this is fascinating. And obviously that's a question of leadership. We realize it's also been a tumultuous political period for the country. But none of that detracts from the incredible significance of the country's technological advancements and their impact around digital public services, around green technology, around healthcare. Really, it's about these lessons and how do we learn and take from the innovations that are underway in urban resilience and circular economy and in the opportunities of tech transfer as we look at transposing that to the rest of the region. The other thing that I think is important to stress, and again, my perspective and experience is limited and is much more focused on underdeveloped country contexts, but what I have been amazed by is the energy of the startup culture and just the sheer number of startups that are tackling core issues that affect people that affect community, the air pollution, the aging population, issues around food sustainability, and then all like the accelerators and infrastructure in place where there is a growing foundation for how Korean startups are going to be able to reach out and scale to the rest of Southeast Asia and then bring, affordability and adaptable solutions outward. So there's obviously huge levels of education and talent. There's the benefit of an opportunity of strategic location. There's kind of an underlying, not so latent cultural influence, the global reach of Korean culture today. All of this to me in the impact context means that there's a lot to explore in terms of the public-private collaborations, the academic and research side of things, and the startup collaborations. So, at Annie, at Arthur Networks, we're collaborating very closely in the context of Sonamu, building the kind of a work in progress infrastructure where we're building a pipeline of these great opportunities that's visible and actionable for others. And so what's striking, again, and I'll close on this note, is there's an incredible outward orientation of the investors and the entrepreneurs who are thinking like both regional and global. And, there really is a strong value put on partnerships in what we all know is a pretty fragmented ecosystem. So just that alone as a good start, I think is a fantastic starting point and is a message that I'd like for us to be able to propagate through the rest of the global mission investment ecosystem. So I'll close with that.
That was wonderful, Audrey, and the great link between Impact Korea and K-pop. Actually, the reference on culture. It's not as far-fetched as you think. We have a company that many in this screen are very familiar with. It's a Korean-based company that has a K-pop boys group that has North Korea refugee, and they're just going to debut globally next month, and they have more than 1 million followers. So that's some exciting linkages between Korea and culture as well. So thanks again, and let's move to our final speaker today with Jung-tae Kim, and I'd like to invite him to discuss building all this wonderful presentation, how Korea is serving as a gateway to the broader Asian market. Jung-tae, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Kwang. My name is Jung-tae Kim, CEO of Meria Social Company, and we are one of the Asia's largest early-stage impact investor since 2011. So I'm happy to share some of my thoughts as to why Korea could be a gateway to Asia. I think there are two ways of interpreting this. The first one is Korean startups increasingly going to Asian market. That's a one very specific strong flow. And second flow is many Asian entrepreneurs, they are coming to Korea, Seoul, test their ideas and finding out market fit, and then they actually go move on to either EU and then USA. So there are two specific flows happening right away in Seoul. So let me start with borderless Asia, this concept, because in terms of many stuff, Asia is becoming more borderless regions. For example, Audrey mentioned K-pop culture, food, lots of, cultural stuff. This is just one of the examples how many Asian regions, they becoming one market, sharing issues, but also sharing market, and then also providing opportunities for borderless crossover entrepreneurs as well. I think Korea is quite advanced countries, not in terms of economic growth, but in terms of so many either social environmental issues. We are facing super aging society. and then also population declining as well. And due to rapid economic growth, we also are facing economic inequality, environmental crisis, nature crisis, all kinds of very much state-of-art issues that we are facing, so that there are entrepreneurs coming on to come up with their own solutions. And after they test their solutions in the Korean market, increasingly they go to other Asian neighboring countries. So we call it Asia Impact Highway. If Korea, together with Singapore, Japan, and Thailand, and if they are linked through this hypothetical Asia Impact Highway, all the solutions, ideas, services could get into other markets in Asia a lot. And then I also would like to say there is a very much complementary going between, for example, between Korea and Japan, and also, for example, between Korea and Thailand. When it comes to the pair game, like a doubles match game between Korea, Thailand, if they go together, then they could be very strong in CLMV countries like Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam, those four countries, the neighboring countries. And if Korea joins forces with Japan, then this is going to be a really strong forces for Southwest, but also Southeast country market as well. So this is what actually we've been creating for the few years, and then this is happening in Asia as well. So my company has invested in 240 startups so far. And every year we screen around more than 3,000 startups. And out of 3,000 startups we screen, we select around 300 startups to accelerate annually. And out of those 300 startups, we invest in around 50 or 60 per year. So we see lots of entrepreneurs in Korea, but also in Asia, because of the issues that I mentioned over there. And then also specifically, Korea speaks the language of innovation, but also the language of impact. And mostly because there are strong support from conglomerates like SK. For example, SK for the last 10 years, they initiated a quite awesome, fascinating initiative called Social Progress Credit, through which to pay around more than 53 million US dollars for the social values generated by social entrepreneurs. So this is one example how the private sector in South Korea is engaged in this sort of social innovation as well. And then in terms of the startup infrastructure, the public sector, government is also strong supporter to this impact businesses, but also impact investment, so that not just the equity, but also debt financing and grant, and also concessional loan. These are actually being blended to support social enterprises, but also impact businesses, so that impact investors like us could expect a higher return, but also expect lower risks. So this is a government-driven, public sector-driven market. I think this is one of the very, very special condition for Korean market I would like to highlight. Okay, I mentioned initially two flows. Korean startups going more to the Asian market. And for example, Studio G is a DRT-based startup. Korea, there are Seoul metropolitan city, but also rural areas, and then less people living in rural areas. And because of that, the budget has been cut down, and then public transportation has stopped. And that actually causes lots of problems for people's accessibility, so that we now have a DRT technology is quite well known in South Korea. And Studio G, this is one of our portfolios, become a top tier technology in South Korea. They are now active in Chiang Mai, Thailand, for example, so that lots of tech-based startups, they are now going to Southeast and South West Asian countries So this is one of the examples as well. And then lastly, USA, there's a company called Common Good Marketplace from USA. They decided to come to Seoul because they believe that Seoul, Korea, could be a gateway to other Asia regions as well. What they are doing is to verify social value into a monetized assets and then put them onto the secondary market so that funders, social financiers, they purchase those verified impact assets as well. So this is just one of the examples of how many social entrepreneurs around the world they come to Seoul believing Korea as gateway to Asia. And as of last year, we also have a French startup coming to Seoul, also Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia startup entrepreneurs coming to Seoul because they all share the same thinking because Seoul, Korea is a gateway to other part of the world, including USA and EU as well. So I hope to share some more thought with you, and then welcome to see any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, JT. Really exciting to see those case studies and what you're doing with practical examples across Asia. So one quick question for you before we move to the group Q&A. What are the most significant challenges in your view or opportunities that Korean impact businesses that are looking to enter or scale their operations into other Asian markets?
Thank you. Very good question. I think localization still one of the biggest challenges. Lots of entrepreneurs, they could be so comfortable within the Korean market audiences, rules, regulations, so that how could they create better localization in respective countries? I think that's a challenge. An answer to that is finding out really well, good curator or mediator between the two markets. So that I think that there could be several other solutions to that, but I'm happy to discuss more with you.
Great. Thank you, JT. And thank you for all the speakers for these three very exceptional and thought-provoking presentations. And to quickly summarize our discussion so far, Eugene laid out the dynamic, tech-driven nature of Korea's domestic impact ecosystem. Audrey provided the global context, highlighting how Korea's unique development journey and innovative culture make it as a key player in the world. And JT demonstrated how these strengths are being leveraged to create impact beyond the borders, positioning Korea as a strategic gateway to Asia. I'd like to kick off our discussion with a question for all three of you. And also I'd like to invite Kevan and Ken Hines to join the conversation if you wish. But I'd like to open up this question for the panelists. And in the meanwhile, I'll encourage the audience to come up with questions, put it in your chat, or be ready to come up with your questions after this. So the question for the panel is that for an international investor new to Korea, or even maybe to Asia, what is one piece of practical advice you would give for building successful partnerships?
So, I volunteer or you designate, Kwang?
You can volunteer yourself.
Okay. I would say it is all about relationship building because without relationship building, just having market intelligence is not going to be lasting. So my advice is to how to find out how to build up the relationship. I think that's a one way to go for, and then how to go about it. Our cases when we went about Vietnam, Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, and some countries where we are not actually active before, we put our LP money to some of the local VCs to see how they work, also to learn about their experiences, and then through this GP, so that we could actually get some of the market intelligence. Sometimes LP participation, that actually doesn't cost that big, but that actually shows who to trust and who to actually build a relationship with. So that actually we put money to Vietnamese VC, but also Indian VC. So 3 VCs overseas. So this is, I think, a cheapest, easiest way to get involved, and then also see who to trust and how we actually get into the local network as well. Thank you.
Thank you, JT. Anyone else among the panel? Eugene?
Yes. I think it's important to be flexible. Okay. And just because one has been successful in the US or in Europe, that technology for investing may not work in Asia. So one has to be willing to change, accommodate, and to learn new tricks. Um, I think I agree with JT that getting the help of local experts, investors, is an excellent idea. Okay, because it is very difficult to tell a straight talking Korean from a not so straight talking Korean. Okay. Even Koreans have difficulty and we get scammed all the time. So it is, I think, important to get the maximum local advice possible. And to do that, you need to work with trustworthy partners. Okay. So it's very common sense, but people eager to put money to work often forget those things. They see a great project, and it's some of those projects are not going to work. Okay, because uh, 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 you know the technology is just not doable. But the entrepreneurs will tell you otherwise, and it's very important to tell the difference between what is real and what is not real. Okay. That is my advice.
Thank you. Anyone else in the panel? Let you go.
Oh,
You know? Yes?
yeah. Oh, yeah. In terms of asset allocation in Asia, you can find very interesting asset allocation. For example, each country has diversified and unique growth stage. For example, in Southeast Asia, as Jung mentioned, is dynamic economy and is poised for significant growth. So you can focus on consumer or e-commerce oriented, whereas Korea is a high-tech and innovative market. So you can find out IT sectors or bio healthcare sectors. Also, looking forward into East Japan is more like a conglomerate-oriented economy. So you can work with Japanese corporate venture capital type of entity as well. So you can make different type of asset allocation, even in Asia. So I advise you can think about that as well.
Thank you, Chino. Unless any other panel would like to respond, and we can move to the Q&A session with the audience. Okay, I see that nobody's unmuting. So let's move into general question, and I think you can either raise your virtual hand or add questions in the chat. And I think the chat will be the best way to interact. I'm not sure if you can mute and unmute everybody. Kevan, you can guide us here. But I see one question in the chat already. This comes from Vanessa Mulin. Which sectors and geographies do you see as having most opportunities for impact capital? And is it more through debt or equity capital or both? So anybody would like to take this first question? So I guess assuming this is not only for Korea, but also for Asia.
My sense is that having seen a bit of the emergent pipeline that Sonamu in particular is cultivating, there's definitely a mix for both types of instruments. And it does beg the question whether those who are external to the country do have the right access, the critical access to the legal resource and the support that's required for papering the transactions and just ensuring overall compliance with the regulatory environment. But I'll let others speak to the specific, most exciting sectors and geographies in which they're working.
Eugene?
Yeah, I think Vanessa asks a fascinating question. Vanessa, as you know, impact capital can go anywhere in the world. Okay. Um, uh, e- I think the whole world is in need of impact capital. On the other hand, whether the kind of impact you want to make is going to be indeed realized or not, one has to take that into consideration. I've worked a lot in Africa, and I thought, wow, this is a place where we could really make a big impact. Yes, you can put money, but there are a lot of leakages. There are a lot of regulatory issues. There are a lot of structural problems. And putting money to work in Africa is not easy, nor is it scalable. Okay. So, I think where, unfortunately, where impact can be the biggest is actually some of the most difficult places to make investments. Um, there must be a connection there. So I'm going to move away from that idea and suggest as a sector AI, which everyone is getting into, I think is a fantastic sector to go into as an impact investor. Okay. And that is, I'm seeing here in Korea, and Korea is a hotbed of AI research and development. We see how AI is being put to work in all kinds of different uh, situations. And I have to think that, just like if I were to compare AI to internet, and I'm not sure whether you lived through the internet birth and the craziness, Vanessa, I think we are with AI where internet was in about 1997. Okay, so there's a big boom coming up. There's going to be a big bust as well, but we know that internet stayed, and we know that AI is going to stay. This is not a flash in the pants. I think it's going to be, 30, 40 years, 50 years that AI will keep going. So make a good investment in AI and try to drive that investment into, try to get the AI to work in an impactful manner that you like. I think that is your best bet. And you can take AI to any geography, just as we know that impact is really kind of borderless. Does that help?
Yes,
Thank you,
thank you.
Eugene.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank
So,
you,
Vanessa, why do you ask that question? Can I ask?
Yeah,
Vanessa?
actually, I was, completely on board with you with getting a true impact. And I was thinking maybe more, I like the way you took the answer. I was thinking maybe more towards, Korea, and Korea is a gateway to Asia, where the
Yes.
sectors and the impact opportunities are definitely true impact. And also, I think for us, we don't do a lot of impact investment in Korea, and probably because for us it's a pretty developed country, as you said, and we look for a lot of additionality, so it's always challenging to find all the opportunities. So I was curious from that perspective, although I have maybe some follow-up questions on the AI aspect as well, which I find very interesting.
So thank you for that. Vanessa, Korea is sort of advanced, but we know where we came from. And when I was a young boy, we were a very, very poor country. So we think we know some of the ways to take people, large groups of people out of poverty to make life a little bit better for them. So our experience is probably a lot better than European or American, where the economic development took place over a long period of time, and most people who experience the difficulties that so Africa or South Asian or Southeast Asian countries are going through, they don't know what it's like. So it's easier, and actually, Korea is putting a lot of money into projects, infrastructure projects that we give out as ODA to Africa and South Asian countries. So there is a very close link about putting impact capital to work here in Korea and making the impact in other places.
Thank you for that.
Thank you,
Very,
Jane.
very helpful.
ODA is Overseas Development System, the grant money that governments give as aid. So before we move to the next question, JT, you have any final thoughts? Quick few seconds, 10-second thoughts about this? Anything to add?
As for the Vanessa, the first question.
Yes.
Okay. So even though I think there are very strong good sectors for specifically impact investment, but I think impact investing is a theme, not about the asset class. So that could be also found at fintech, mobility, renewable energies, and in every consumer sectors as well. So I think thinking of impact investment as a thesis-driven investment, I think that's what we do. So that's what I would like to say. And then in terms of the debt and then equity capital, I think in Korea, debt financing and equity investment has been separated to many extent, but we love to deploy blended financing because without this sort of blended financing, the risk is too much, right? So that equity, but also concessional and loan, and even there are lots of grants coming in from corporations, foundation as well. So even for MISC, our company last year, we alone, we deployed around 23 million US dollars as a total blended financing as well. So this is one way of lowering the risks, but also expecting higher returns. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, JT. So we have a more active chat. We'll move on to the next question. And this actually comes from Audrey. Do you see public-private collaborations as an opportunity to scale up rapidly impact solutions in the region? Also, will the new generation of impact investors shift the rules of the impact investment game in the region? Anyone like to take the question? Audrey, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, no, I'm curious what folks have seen as examples, as cases in particular, if any.
Oh, yeah. Can I answer a little bit about that? I think in the financial market in Asia, we have developed a lot of different class of asset class from equity to debt and commingling those together. But in the impact investing in Asia, I think JT has mentioned, we will moving forward more like blended finance, including equity and debt and grant together. By that way, we can manage the risk return profile, even in impact investment society marketplace as well. So I'm seeing more movement toward the asset allocation risk return adjustment. And in Korea, in other Asian impact market, so far equity market has been developed, but I personally expect there will be more debt market or social impact bond in order to scale up for infrastructure for social sectors. Particularly in Japan, they are developing a lot of social impact bond. In Korea recently, we have seen several impact bond for helping society. So I'm seeing new movement will toward more like impact uh, social impact bond and also blended finance.
If I may just add on that to what Chilo said, I think these are a bit two different worlds where we have retail impact investment ecosystem in Korea, which a lot of us involved in, but also you have a lot of public money involved with green bonds, with social bonds. Social impact bonds are a bit different asset class as well. But so there is heavily focused on billions of dollars of those capital. And also in Korea, you have the Green Climate Fund, which is a multilateral finance. So you have different classes of development finance impact scene, and also you have a more bottom-up approach to impact. And I think we're still trying to find things in between, and we are seeing something. And Ken and Audrey and myself and Kayvon, we've been engaged in a fascinating project in the area of nature-based solutions, and that could be public-private impact initiatives involving Korean and Asian institutions with foreign investors, impact investors. So I think that with blended finance structures. So I think we're trying to figure this out. So yeah, so Eugene?
Yeah. Audrey, in Korea, we have a very big fund of funds run by the Korean government that is actually the main initiator of providing funds to VCs here in Korea. And so I think when you talk about public-private collaboration, clearly the hand of the government through the fund of funds is very noticeable. Now, to what extent they take a deep interest in the day-to-day workings of the VCs, that depends. But what we're noticing is that recently the allocation going towards impact investments is increasing more and more. Okay, so I think the kind of public-private collaboration, this is just one instance of it, is growing here in Korea, and I notice that in other countries there is a deep interest in doing similar work. uh, public, they realize that a lot of the private initiatives are too weak and not necessarily in line with what the government would want to do. So we know that, for example, Vietnam, which has always been very socialistic, Thailand, even Malaysia, are very much in that direction. Of course, Singapore has always been pretty much a government run state. So I think we can expect the public-private collaborations to scale up and grow even more.
Thank you, Jane. Actually, I was gonna finish on that note that the public money that Korea has is both a blessing and a curse. That can be serve as a catalyst for a lot of the great impact investment scenes and ecosystems. But at the same time, it becomes distortive. And there's been several empirical studies about it as well. But just practically,
Really?
yesterday I was talking to impact entrepreneur who received funding to focus on the elderly, which is a big problem here. And that person was thinking about going to Southeast Asia and the United States with the same idea of focusing on the elderly, and it's not a growing market necessarily. So it shows a bit of the distortion and bias that happens when you have too much of government funding, and not without discounting the merits of it.
Right.
I know that we have other questions, but Ken, you really thought about this as well on the public-private partnerships in Korea. Is any quick thoughts on this?
Thanks, Kwang, and just to thank all the panelists for the thoughts and insights that they've shared so far. I agree with what's been said on the public-private side. I also, the sort of distortion makes a lot of sense. There also seems to be, for me, and I'd be curious to hear from the panel, is there a missed opportunity there in terms sort of on the blended finance side, where using that government support to catalyze and bring in outside capital, not just outside capital from private investors in Korea, but global investors, and what might that look like?
Yeah, I think Ken challenges with the question. It's very thought provocative in doing so. So I'm going to encourage the panel to, go ahead, Eugene.
And Korea has a lot of capital. Okay. If anything, it has too much capital. And what do I mean by that? The banks and the asset managers are not, and we're going through a bit of a downturn, so not deploying that quickly enough. Okay. And the Korean market is too small, meaning that our capital needs to do work overseas. In that sense, Jong-tae and Misk is doing a tremendous job, I think, taking our capital, impact capital, especially overseas. So, but we do want to attract overseas capital into Korea because we feel that that will help develop our sector even more. So, not all money is the same. We think Swiss money is a little bit smarter than Korean money, for example. So we would welcome that. And what they're doing, the government is encouraging a joint venture to be set up between, say, a European or a US VC and a Korean investor, maybe a family office. And the government will put quite a bit of, through their fund of funds, quite a bit of money as an anchor investor into those funds. So that's ongoing.
Thank you, Eugene. Very nice. For the interest of time, we have several questions coming on in the chat, and also somebody had a handout. So the next question from Jae-myung Lee, James Lee, not to be confused with Lee Jae-myung, the new president-elect of Korea, has the same name. He asked about the president. Curious on everyone's, especially Korean panels, thoughts on the impact of Lee Jae-myung's new presidency. In previous leadership of Moon from the Democratic Party, we saw a huge amount of capital from the government coming into the social impact investing landscape, which had both pros and cons. Do you see similar support from the new government? What do you think are the new opportunities and challenges? Okay, so
Sorry, Kwon, just a quick thing from me, a little housekeeping thing. I've realized a number of people who've used my link to log into the session are showing up as me like 10 times. So if you could go in and rename yourself so that the questions are accurately reflected by the person who's asking, that would be great. Sorry, please.
Thank you, Audrey.
Sure.
Thank you. So anybody in the panel?
Like a Matrix movie where everyone becomes like Audrey.
It's not a good thing.
Any thoughts about the new government?
Shall we answer James's question? Yeah. Oh, I
Yes,
think Gino is
Eugene
going.
or
Gino, go
Gino?
first. Gino, go
Yeah.
first.
I think obviously, when we remember the case of DJ, or the liberal parties reason, then those days impact over the ESG venture has been boomed. So we remember that, and also we remember in case of Republic, a conservative party ruled over the past 3 years. We had some difficulties, nascent growth in the impact market. So I think it's very natural when we have a new government, which is the Liberal Party, governed by Lee Jae-myung. I think personally, we will see some active revival in this impact side, given our experience, because they usually the Korean the Liberal Party, they support small and medium industry rather than conglomerates. So we definitely will expect some encouragement booming in this particular venture and impact side. Personally, I don't know how much they will, but we will expect. This is very natural thinking, I think.
Thank you, Chino. Eugene, you have anything to say? You know people who are close in this government.
In Korea, everyone knows everyone else. Okay, we're a very well connected society. I think, James, that your instinct is right. There will be a lot of money that goes into the impact space. This is something that the new president has always been very keen to do, to mobilize capital and to help the underdogs, the less the less well served parts of the community. So if you want to do work in the social impact space, I think the next 5 years is going to be actually a very, very good environment.
Fantastic. Just in the interest of time, I'd like to move to the next question. And this is from Nadia. And she says, thanks for the interesting insights, building the current conversation around impact bonds. I have a question regarding the return profiles for the private credit, debt investments within the impact sustainability focused companies in Korea. How does it compare with other markets in Asia? I'm curious to learn your thoughts. She covers Asia credit at Blue Earth Capital. We rarely see any transactions in Korea, and typically, given how deep local capital markets are, the pricing is very low. So tricky to pursue given the return hurdles. In general, the relative value prospectively. Okay, so anybody would like to take on that question? I guess Chino and Eugene, you might have some perspective, but anybody in the panel?
I
I
don't have
was,
much
yeah,
much idea on this.
yeah. First, from my perspective, in terms of the return on investment, IRR, for equity side, the history of the Korean equity side of impact investment is only about 7-8 years history. So over the next 2-3 years, we will see a maturity come up. So I'm very personally interested about the liquidity side of this impact in equity classification. So one of my suggestions into the government recently was, why don't we make a impact secondary fund in order to absorb those upcoming liquidity issues, or we can set up the Korea Social Stock Exchange in order to prevent some upcoming liquidity issues. So I think we will see the return side result. And in terms of the debt market, we have seen very limited number of case in the social impact bond in terms of result of the return. So still is premature to judge the return on investment in those asset classes in Korea. I think that is very interesting perspective. We will have to watch out.
Maybe I can add on that. As far as I know, there are just a few social impact bonds project in Korea, and then we invest into two separate social impact bonds, and two of them actually succeeded, and it's actually the interest rate in terms of interest is 25%. So I would say it's not that actually small, but still just a few social impact bonds in Korea. So we'll see how these evolve.
Thank you, Chino and JT. I think the question fundamentally is about scale. Is there enough scale on sustainability, sustainable finance, impact investment scene in Korea? And I think jury is still out there. It's an emerging and growing scene. Whether this will evolve to the point where institutional investor will see more of Korean asset classes and the impact side in the radar, that's yet to be seen, to be determined. So Edmund Wabi has been patiently waiting with the hands up. So if Edmund, maybe you could unmute his mic.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much for this very interesting discussion and for the topic. It's very timely because my name is Iman Wahbi. I'm a partner in a venture capital fund. We're also looking at SMEs. I used to work at the World Bank in Korea, so I'm a bit familiar with the success story on the Han River. So my question is, you have great successful companies in Korea that their products are very much needed in emerging markets. I'm speaking from the Middle East. I'm based in Egypt. So how to support, it's on the other side, how to support scaling up internationally the SMEs. I'm not speaking on the disruptive tech, but more on, for instance, on you're leading on climate action, on climate solutions. So how to support them scale internationally to where their solutions are much needed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Edmund. Anyone would like to take this question?
Yeah, Emma, I think you raise a very interesting point. Clearly, we have the technology, the SMEs have the know-how to do things in places like the Middle East, in Africa, and South Asia. And I think we are going there. What we do is we try to get the Korean government or other multinational, for example, African Development Bank, to go with us to implement the project. And the biggest problem in going overseas is that we need good partners locally. We need to make sure that the project is doable, is feasible, but most importantly, probably, is that we need to be paid for doing the work. And right now, there are multinational development banks and various organizations willing to do this. But if we could find at the source, for example, in Egypt, reliable partners who are able to work with us on these projects, I think we could put together a great partnership.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
We would
Jen.
love to partner and to see how we can help you overseas in emerging markets. Thanks a lot.
Let's
Iman,
stay in touch.
yeah,
That'd be
Iman,
great.
it'd be great to have an email exchange and also really to look at what's in the landscape of the enterprise support and acceleration incubation work that's underway, because that's a very rich landscape in Seoul specifically, as I understand it. But yes.
Actually, there's lots of ideas in that space being cooked right now, Edmund, and this event is too short to talk about, but I know that several of us are involved in blended finance structures for the region involving Korea and other entities. So on that note, I think I'd like to say that as a follow-up, we'll make sure that the participants are all connected, so you have a way to communicate with us. And in terms of, and also some of the panelists would like to share some ideas and ways to get involved in the Korean market. So I think we will make sure that you are all connected after the event. On that note, I know that I wish we could have one or two more questions. It's just been really fascinating, but in interest of time, I'd like to invite Audrey to help us with a call to action and next steps, as well as the closing. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you all. This has been a very insightful discussion and really on the back of all IFB sessions that we do virtually and physically. Our goal is to connect those of us who have shared interests, those of us who should be talking, and also to highlight that, there's always folks that we know who aren't in this virtual or physical room. So please think of them as well, and we can always circle back and connect dots. Our goal is to ensure that partnership opportunities where they exist, particularly in the realm of blended financing, are highlighted. I know that in the context of, for example, Sonamu Arta, there are many live opportunities there. So I would encourage you all to reach out if that's of interest. And really, it's just about, as well, engaging with global IFB, whether it's in the context of further participation in global virtual events, ideas to lead global virtual events, and in this case also specifically to interact with what is a very vibrant chapter in IFB at IFB Seoul that's chaired by the gentleman on this call. So I really just, the spirit of all this is always to ensure that the links we're making lead to the good stuff happening. We always talk about collective action and coordination. Conferences pay lip service to collaboration all the time. We find that the higher cadence of these types of informal meetings increases the likelihood of collective action. So please follow up and let us know if you have thoughts, questions, or ideas. I'd like to thank all the speakers, all our attendees, the founding team of IFB Seoul, and just to reiterate the core message, we see incredibly exciting potential in the Korean market as a gateway for impact. So please bear that in mind. Do spread the word. A recording of the session will also be available and shared. And thank you very much for your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. Hope to hear from you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.